number 1, stop being a little bitch. Stop making excuses. Be confident. Take some risks. An enemy player makes you one shot, don't hide behind that wall. Jump out at that motherfucker and show him that your cock is bigger. But in all seriousness, in this video today, I'm going to be sharing what I believe are some good tips to help players improve in Halo. Now, I've always felt like it might be a little weird or cringe to make a Halo tip video in 2021, but now I actually think it kind of makes sense. You see, with Halo Infinite coming out later this year and all the hype surrounding that game, you're going to have a lot of new and returning Halo players playing Halo Infinite. And so I believe there's going to be a ton of people who could find the tips I'm going to share in this video useful. And so without wasting any more time, let's just jump right into this. And this tip number 1 actually might be one of the bigger things, if I'm being honest. My tip number 1 would be slow the fuck down. And what I mean by that is this. So when MCC started releasing on PC, it had a lot of new players trying out the game. And what I've noticed from watching some streamers who haven't played Halo in a long time, I noticed they play in such a way where it looks like they're constantly moving around the map looking for players to shoot at. Now, yeah, I know you shoot at people in a first-person shooter, yes. But there are times in Halo where you just want to chill out. You don't want to move. You want to hold a position, hold an angle. But what I see from a lot of these streamers, these returning Halo players, is they're constantly on the move looking for shit to shoot at. And it's just like, whoa, stop, slow down, chill out for a second. And this type of play style that I see from these new and returning players in Halo, it kind of reminds me of the way some people play Battle Royales or Call of Duty Warzone, where you drop in and people are just trying to get as many kills as fast as possible. And you don't necessarily need to do that in Halo. There are times where it would be beneficial to slow down, hold a position, as opposed to just hold forward and constantly looking for people and trying to kill as many people as fast as possible. Because there's no guarantee that you're going to win all of your battles, so you might put yourself in a bad situation. You die, that puts your team down a man, or you had sniping, you died, and you gave the other teams a power weapon. So there are times where you just want to slow down, sit back, hold a position, and just chill out. But I swear, from a lot of the streamers I've seen, and this might just be something with streamers and not necessarily new or returning Halo players, because I guess, you know, streamers, they want things to be entertaining. So this might just be something with the streamers, but with every streamer I watch, they all played in a similar way where it looks like they're all trying to get in gunfights. As soon as they're off spawn, they're going, they're looking, they're trying to get in gunfights 24/7. Where, like, as I said, there are times where it is beneficial to chill out, hold an angle, throw some grenades, but from a lot of these guys I watch, it's just they're constantly hunting for people and trying to get in gunfights. Tip number 2. Grenades and melee. I don't know of any other shooter where you are using grenades and melee attacks as frequently as you do in Halo. Grenades and melee, they are very important in Halo. You can't ignore them. So first off, the melee. Don't ignore the melee. There are times where if you're in a close quarter situation, it is beneficial to melee your opponent. But you want to know when to do it. Like, typically, if you're shooting at somebody and you're in melee range, put enough shots into them so that your melee will kill them outright, as opposed to meleeing them and then having to do more damage to finish them off. Nah, shoot him with that AR or the BR, whatever you're using, get his shields down, and then land the final melee to kill him. There's also times where an enemy player might come around a corner and you guys are face to face, and his initial attack will be to melee you. And you might not necessarily want to melee him right back, because he already got the melee off before you, so he'll be able to melee again and shoot again before you are if you melee back. So what you might want to do there is, if you, depending on what weapon you have, or if you're playing the hardcore Halo 3 settings where it's a 2-shot beatdown with the BR to get the kill, you might want to start shooting at that player immediately after he melees you, because like I said, if you're playing the hardcore settings, you can put 2 shots into him with the BR and get a melee off and kill him before he can shoot or melee you to finish you off. But even in the normal default settings for all the Halo games, there are other weapons that will be able to deplete that enemy shields fast enough so that you could get a melee off to kill him before he can recover from his initial melee on you and melee you again or shoot you again. So just because somebody melees you, don't always melee back immediately. But of course, there are times where you will want to do that. If you and a player melee each other at the same time, you might want to melee him again and just go for the trade. There's also times where he might get the melee off on you first, and you know you're probably going to die, so you just want to get a melee off on him, make him one shot before you die. Everything's really situational in Halo. Also, grenades. Grenades are so unbelievably important in Halo. In some of the Halo games, you can actually nade weapons to you if you know the right lineup. And obviously, grenades are also important for doing damage to enemy players and forcing them out of certain areas. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go through all these different examples of what would be considered a good grenade throw because there's a ton of them, and a lot of it's situational. You also want to take advantage of the fact that you can bounce a grenade off of a surface and have it explode in the air, because a grenade will not explode unless it touches a surface first. If you throw it and it's just soaring through the air, it's not going to explode until it contacts a surface, and then it'll explode after that. Not immediately, but... And with certain grenades, like plasma grenades, in some of the Halo games, you can throw the plasma grenades in a way where it'll either allow you to launch the second plasma grenade off the blast of the first plasma grenade. It'll allow you to launch that across the map. There's other games like Halo 3 where you can do an insta-nade, where you throw the first sticky grenade and then you throw the second one, and you use the blast of the first sticky grenade to detonate the second sticky grenade in the air, and that's a pretty common tactic that a lot of people use. Moving right along, my third tip would be timing power-ups and power weapons. Unlike a lot of games nowadays, other than Battle Royale, but that's different, you don't have a lot of weapons and power-ups spawning on the map. A lot of modern games, it's all about your loadout, spawning into the game with a specific loadout. Whereas in Halo, well, most of the Halo games, and hopefully Halo Infinite, it even starts when you spawn into the game. And the weapons and the power-ups and the equipment are laid out on the map. Now, it is very important to know the layout and where things spawn on each map, but it is also very important to know the spawn times of these weapons, equipment, and power-ups on every map. I mean, seriously, if one team knows the spawn times for items on a map and the other team does not, well, that is a huge advantage to the team that knows the spawn times. The spawn times for items on a map in Halo can vary from map to map. It can also vary from Halo game to Halo game. But nonetheless, it is very, very important that you learn these times if you want to compete in Halo at the highest level. My fourth tip, and this is just a quick one, strafing. It is sometimes beneficial to strafe left and right, maybe add some jumps in there and crouches when you're in a gunfight with another player, so it makes you harder to hit. I do feel like the effectiveness of strafing in Halo is no longer as good as it once was, because if you look at a game like Halo the Master Chief Collection for PC, it is a lot easier to shoot and track players in that game due to multiple different things, such as the increased frame rate. There isn't as much input lag on PC. You have modern aiming, you have mouse and keyboard support, so it is so much easier to track and shoot players on the MCC as opposed to playing these legacy Halo games, their original releases back on the Xbox and Xbox 360, playing at 30 FPS, not even a consistent 30, a lot of input lag, inferior aiming controls. So strafing is still important, but I don't think it's as important as it used to be, and one of the main things I hope we see with Halo Infinite is a much higher skill ceiling when it comes to aiming in that game, because I honestly feel like aiming in Halo has gotten way too easy, much easier than it should be. Tip number 5, player spawns. Like we've already discussed, it is very important to understand where items on the map spawn, but it's also important to have some knowledge of where teammates and enemies are going to spawn on the map. Now, this is one of those things that I feel like a lot of new and returning Halo players tend to neglect, but knowing spawns is very, very important. Like if you understand how spawns work on a particular map, well, that could tell you everything you need to know. That could tell you pretty much exactly where the enemy team is going to spawn. So instead of being overly cautious and being ready for the enemy to spawn anywhere on the map, if you know spawns, you might know exactly where they're going to spawn, and there might only be 2 different routes out of that spot where they will spawn, and you could focus all of your attention on that spot. If you don't know spawns and you think they could spawn anywhere, then you're kind of lost. You're looking around, you have to be ready for anything. But if you know spawns, it really helps because you can really narrow down where the enemy players are going to be spawning and coming from. And here's a quick example of how knowledge of spawns can really benefit a player. If you're on the map Guardian from Halo 3 and you're set up in such a way where there's a high chance that the enemy is going to spawn bottom blue. Well, if you pull up the in-game scoreboard, you can tell when a player is dead because they will have a red X next to their name. And once that X goes away and you can see their emblem, that means they have respawned. So if you're looking at that scoreboard, you can see exactly when they spawn. So if you have a really good idea that they spawn bottom blue and you see exactly when they spawn, it's pretty common that a player will walk up blue ramp to blue window. Well, if you time it right, you can throw a grenade so that it blows up as soon as they get to the top of that ramp. The grenade blows up, makes them one shot, and then you just shoot them in the head to finish them off. And so understanding where players are going to spawn and timing those spawns can benefit you on a lot of different maps in every Halo game. People really neglect this, but it is so important. Tip number 6. Map movement. There are certain times in a Halo multiplayer match where it is beneficial to move around the map in a certain way at a certain time. Like jumping top mid on midship when all your teammates are dead and the enemy team is set up on the map is not really an intelligent decision. So you got to be aware that moving around the map in some ways can be better than others. And also there's times where you don't want to move around the map. You want to stay put. If you're playing Team Slayer on Guardian and your team has the lead and your team is at Snipe Tower, for the most part you want to stay there. You might want to put a man or 2 in green, but for the most part you want to stay at Snipe Tower. You don't want to just push out top mid. That would be a dumb play. Well, it would be a dumb play in many cases. A lot of Halo is, like I said, situational. So I can't say doing this is always bad or doing that is always good. So you got to keep in mind, when is it a good time to move around the map and how is the best way to do it. I'm not going to sit here and go through examples of good ways to move around every single Halo map. Obviously that would take way too long, but just keep that in mind. Map movement, knowing when and where to push, that's all very important. And also in some of the Halo games, there's certain trick jumps or skill jumps, whatever you want to call them, that could give you the upper hand. Like obviously on Halo 3 Guardian, I've been using Guardian as an example most of the time, but that's okay. A lot of these things apply to the other Halo games, to the other Halo maps. You have jumps like Gold 1 to Gold 2, S1 to S2. There's a bunch of different skill jumps that you could use, and it could catch the enemy player off guard if you execute it properly. Tip number 7, and this is going to be my final tip, is player/situational awareness. Playing a lot of 1v1s, I think, is a good way to improve your situational awareness in game, although obviously there's many more factors in playing like a 2v2 or a 4v4. But in 1v1s, it really can help a player improve their awareness in those one-on-one situations. And it helps you get more of an understanding of the decisions that other players make. So what exactly am I talking about when I talk about player awareness, situational awareness? Basically, I'm just talking about anticipating the movement and the actions of another player and anticipating the routes they are going to take, the spots they are going to look. This is one of those things that you can learn and get better at over time as you play the game. But yeah, this is something that is also very important in Halo. I'm going to show another example here. And also keep in mind that certain people play the game certain ways, And if you play against a particular player enough, you can kind of learn that player's play style and get a feel for the things they are going to do in a game of Halo. Here's an example right here, me 1v1ing my friend. I understand from playing this guy in the past that he likes to do this jump from kind of like bottom mid area, bottom gold area, in between. He likes to do this jump to hit the lift, and it brings him top mid. So when I shoot him here and make him one shot and he drops down, instead of moving S1 and trying to look bottom mid or going elbow and waiting for him to come up elbow, I know that he likes to do this jump a lot. So I'm going to stay here and I'm going to wait and anticipating that he is going to do this jump. And in this situation, he does. This clip here is obviously a stage clip, but in our actual real 1v1s, this has happened. So that's what I mean by awareness. And again, this is something that you can learn just by playing the game. You'll really start to understand how players move around the map and the type of things that are really popular to do on particular maps. And like I said, if you're playing against a particular person a bunch, you can even start to learn their unique play style, and you can play around that and use that to your advantage. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Those are 7 tips that I really think could help new and returning Halo players. I do think these skills will translate to Infinite as well. And these tips could also help people who have played a lot of Halo and never stopped playing Halo. Obviously, there's some things I didn't touch on, like map callouts. That's another thing. Knowing callouts of certain maps so you can call out to your teammates and you can respond to their callouts. That's another thing. But these are the 7 tips I came up with, which I believe are the most important, and there is the chance that I just completely forgot some things. And obviously there's also like really game specific tips for like each Halo game in particular, and I didn't really cover those things, like how you can share OS in Halo CE with a teammate. I didn't really cover that because those are like specific to just that game. I just decided to present tips that I think could apply to all of the Halo games, or most of the Halo games, and I also think these things will apply to Halo Infinite as well. But anyways, guys, like I said, that's going to do it for this one. I never thought I would be making a Halo tip video in 2021, but as I said at the beginning of the video, I do think this video could serve a purpose. Seeing as there's a lot of hype surrounding Halo Infinite, a lot of new and returning players are going to be playing that game, and I do think they could find a lot of these tips useful. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.